Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of Earth's main defense station, watching the celebration below. Millions of people had gathered in cities across the planet for the Festival of Unity. Children from 12 different human colonies laughed and played together. Their parents shared stories of life among the stars. It was a beautiful sight. Jake had seen many things in his 40 years of military service. He remembered the old days when humans fought each other over land and resources. Those times were gone now. For 300 years, humanity had spread across the galaxy in peace. They made friends with alien species. They built homes on distant worlds. They shared their knowledge and learned from others. The Festival of Unity happened every 5 years. Representatives from all human colonies came to Earth. They brought gifts, art, and music from their worlds. The celebration lasted for 7 days. This was only the second day, and Jake already felt proud of what humanity had become. Dr. Lisa Harper worked in her laboratory on Luna, Earth's moon. She studied alien technology for the Defense Network. Most of her work involved peaceful projects like faster communication systems and better life support for space stations. Today, she was examining crystal samples from the Zephyrian Empire. The Zephyrians were a strange species. They looked like tall, thin humans, but their skin had a blue-gray color. They lived in crystal cities and used energy weapons. Their ships were beautiful but intimidating. Lisa had met them once at a diplomatic meeting. They seemed cold and distant, but many alien species acted that way. Captain Ryan Torres flew his patrol ship around Earth's outer defense ring. His job was simple and boring most days. He checked the sensor networks and made sure everything worked properly. Earth had not faced a real threat in over a century. The defense systems were mostly for protection against asteroids and space debris. Ryan loved flying, though. He had been a pilot for 15 years. His squadron consisted of 12 fast interceptor ships. They could reach any point around Earth in minutes. Not that they ever needed to do anything exciting. The most action Ryan had seen was helping rescue a broken cargo ship last year. President Amanda Foster gave a speech to the crowd in New Geneva. She talked about peace, cooperation, and the bright future ahead for humanity. The crowd cheered as she described new colonies being planned and new friendships with alien species. Amanda believed deeply in diplomacy. She had spent her entire career building bridges between different worlds and cultures. Amanda often said that humanity's greatest strength was not their weapons or technology. It was their ability to work together and care for each other. She pointed to the crowd around her as proof. Humans from dozens of different worlds stood together as one people. High above the celebration, Jake Morrison noticed something strange. On his sensors, 10 objects were moving toward Earth at incredible speed. They were still far away, but getting closer fast. The computer identified them as artificial objects, not asteroids or comets. Jake frowned and called his sensor operator. "Martinez, what are those contacts?" "Unknown, sir," replied Lieutenant Carlos Martinez. "They're moving too fast to be normal ships, and they're not responding to our identification requests." Jake felt a cold feeling in his stomach. "How long until they reach Earth?" "At current speed, about 8 minutes, sir." Jake hit the alarm button. Red lights flashed throughout the defense station. "All hands to battle stations. This is not a drill." On Luna, Dr. Lisa Harper heard the alarm through her communication system. She had never heard that alarm before except in training exercises. Her hands shook as she activated her emergency protocols. All her equipment automatically began recording everything. If Earth was under attack, her data might be important later. Captain Ryan Torres heard the alarm in his ship. His squadron had trained for this moment, but none of them believed it would ever happen. "All pilots form up on me," he said into his radio. "We have unknown contacts approaching Earth." Ryan's ship computer gave him information about the approaching objects. They were missiles, big ones. Each missile was the size of a small ship and carried enough explosive power to destroy a city. Ryan's blood ran cold as he realized what was happening. President Amanda Foster was still giving her speech when her security team rushed onto the stage. They whispered urgently in her ear. Her face went pale as they explained the situation. She turned back to the crowd with a shaking voice. "Ladies and gentlemen, please remain calm and move to the nearest emergency shelters immediately. This is not a drill. The crowd began to panic as people realized something was seriously wrong. Parents grabbed their children and ran toward the underground shelters that existed in every major city. The Festival of Unity was turning into a nightmare. Jake Morrison watched as Earth's defense systems came online. Laser cannons and missile interceptors powered up around the planet. The defense network was impressive, but it had never been tested against a real attack. Computers calculated intercept courses and began firing. First missile destroyed, reported Martinez. Second missile destroyed, third missile down. Jake allowed himself to hope. Maybe the defense network would stop all the missiles. Maybe this attack would fail completely. Fourth missile destroyed. Fifth missile down. Sixth missile intercepted. Ryan Torres and his squadron flew toward the remaining missiles. Their ships were fast, but the missiles were faster. Ryan knew they probably could not catch them all, but they had to try. Every missile they stopped meant thousands of lives saved. Seventh missile destroyed by defense grid, came the report. Eighth missile down. 2 missiles remained. Ryan's squadron fired everything they had at the 8th missile. Their combined firepower tore it apart, just as it entered Earth's atmosphere. Pieces of burning metal fell harmlessly into the ocean. 1 missile remained. It was heading straight for New Geneva, where President Foster had been giving her speech. The defense systems fired desperately, but the missile was too close and moving too fast. Jake Morrison watched in horror as the final missile struck the city. A bright flash lit up the planet as the antimatter warhead exploded. When the light faded, New Geneva was gone. In its place was a massive crater filled with radioactive fire. Similar explosions followed as the pieces Jake thought had been destroyed turned out to be smaller warheads. Perth Megalopolis vanished in another flash. Lagos Central disappeared in a third explosion. In less than 4 minutes, over 7 million humans were dead. The Festival of Unity had become a day of mourning that would never be forgotten. Jake Morrison stared at the destruction below and felt something change inside him. For 300 years, humanity had chosen peace. They had been patient, kind, and diplomatic. They had believed that all problems could be solved through talking and understanding. That belief died with the cities below. As rescue ships launched toward the burning craters, Jake Morrison spoke words that would echo across the galaxy. They have no idea what they just awakened. The news spread across human space faster than light itself. Every colony, every ship, every space station received the same terrible message. Earth had been attacked. Millions were dead. The age of peace was over. President Amanda Foster stood in the emergency command center deep beneath the ruins of Geneva. Her face was covered in dust, and her clothes were torn. She had barely escaped the explosion that destroyed her city. Now she faced the hardest decision of her life. How many? She asked quietly. General Marcus Webb, a large man with gray hair and tired eyes, looked at his reports. 7.2 million confirmed dead. The rescue teams are still searching, but there's not much hope for more survivors. Amanda closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Around her, military officers and government officials waited for orders. For 3 centuries, humanity had solved problems through talking and compromise. Today, that approach had gotten 7 million people killed. Who did this? Amanda asked. Dr. Lisa Harper stepped forward. She had taken the first transport from Luna to Earth as soon as the attack ended. Her analysis equipment was already studying pieces of the missiles that had been destroyed. The Zephyrian Empire, Lisa said. The missile fragments contain their crystal technology signatures. There's no doubt about it. Amanda had met the Zephyrian ambassador many times. They had seemed cold, but not hostile. Why would they attack us? We have no conflicts with them. We've never even visited their territory without permission. That's just it, Lisa continued. The navigation systems in these missiles show they tracked our colony ships. They've been watching us for years, mapping our settlements. This wasn't a random attack. They planned to kill as many humans as possible. The room fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. The Zephyrians had not attacked Earth because of some disagreement or territorial dispute. They had attacked simply to commit genocide. General Webb placed a file on the table in front of Amanda. Ma'am, I need authorization to activate Project Nemesis. Amanda stared at the file. Project Nemesis was humanity's darkest secret. During the early days of space exploration, when humans still feared alien threats, they had built weapons. Terrible weapons. Ships designed for one purpose: war. For 200 years, those weapons had sat in hidden storage, unused and almost forgotten. How many ships? Amanda asked. 50,000 Titan-class warships. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a moon, plus the manufacturing facilities to build more. Amanda looked around the room at the faces of her advisors. She saw fear, anger, and something else. Determination. These people were ready to fight. Colonel Beth Martinez spoke up from her position near the communications panel. "Ma'am, we're receiving reports from the colonies. Every human settlement is mobilizing. The mining operations on Kepler 438b have started producing weapons instead of metals. The shipyards at Alpha Centauri are retooling for military production." "What about the civilian ships?" Amanda asked. Commander Alex Stone, a young officer with sharp eyes, answered. "They're volunteering to be converted to military use. Cargo ships, passenger liners, even pleasure craft. The captains are demanding weapon installations." Amanda realized something incredible was happening. Humanity was transforming itself into a war machine without being ordered to do so. The attack on Earth had awakened something that had slept for centuries. "Ma'am," General Webb said gently, "the colonies are asking for leadership. They want to know what we're going to do." Amanda Foster had spent her entire career believing in peace. She had negotiated treaties, prevented conflicts, and built bridges between different worlds. Now she had to become something she had never wanted to be: a war leader. "Activate Project Nemesis," she said quietly. "Begin full military mobilization of all human territories." General Webb nodded and began issuing orders. Within minutes, signals were racing across space toward hidden military facilities. Soon the first Titan-class warships would emerge from their secret storage and begin the journey toward Zephyrian space. On the colony world of New Texas, Director Sam Johnson received the mobilization order while standing in his mining control center. Sam was a big, quiet man who had spent 30 years digging precious metals out of asteroids. He looked at his workforce of 10,000 miners and made a decision that would change everything. "Listen up, people," he announced over the YOW communication system. "Earth has been attacked. Millions of our people are dead. As of right now, we're not mining anymore, we're building weapons." The miners didn't ask questions. They didn't complain about changing their jobs. They simply started converting their equipment. Rock crushers became metal forges. Ore refineries became ammunition factories. Transport ships became weapons carriers. Engineer Katie Walsh worked frantically at the orbital shipyards above New California. She had been building passenger ships when the news arrived. Now she was redesigning those same ships to carry missiles and soldiers. "How long to convert the civilian fleet?" asked Captain Dan Roberts, a military liaison who had arrived just hours ago. "Give me 3 weeks," Katie replied, studying her computer screens. "But these won't be pretty ships. They'll be ugly, functional, and deadly." "That's exactly what we need," Dan said. Across human space, the same conversation was happening millions of times. Factory workers became weapons manufacturers. Cargo pilots became military transporters. Scientists abandoned their research to design better armor and more powerful guns. The Galactic Council tried to contact Earth to offer mediation. Ambassador Victoria Cross, an elegant woman with silver hair, met with the alien representatives in the ruins of what had been Geneva's diplomatic quarter. "We appreciate your concern," Victoria said calmly, "but there will be no mediation. The Zephyrians chose to murder millions of innocent humans. Now they will face the consequences." The alien ambassadors looked confused. They had known humans as peaceful traders and diplomats. They could not understand the cold fury in Victoria's voice. "Surely there must be some way to resolve this without war," said the Centaurian representative. Victoria smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "You had 300 years to know us in peace. Now you will know us in war." Meanwhile, intelligence reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Human spies and traders who had been living peacefully among other species suddenly activated secret communication networks. They began sending information about Zephyrian military strength, ship movements, and defensive positions. Major Paul Anderson studied these reports in his command post on Mars. Paul was a veteran of the few small conflicts humanity had faced during their expansion. He understood warfare, but he had never seen anything like what was happening now. "Sir," said his aide, "we're receiving volunteer applications from every human settlement. Military experience isn't required. They just want to fight." Paul looked at the numbers. Over 50 million humans had volunteered for military service in just 6 hours. That was more soldiers than most alien empires had in their entire populations. "Start training them," Paul ordered. "We're going to need every one of them." Dr. Rachel Green worked in the propaganda division, though humans didn't usually call it that. Her job was to create information broadcasts for other species. Today, her job changed completely. "I want every alien communication network to receive the same message," she told her team. "Show them the names and faces of everyone who died in the attack. All 7 million of them. Make sure they understand that humans remember every single person who was murdered." The message went out across the galaxy. For hours, alien communication systems were flooded with images of human families that no longer existed. Children who would never grow up. Parents who would never come home. Artists, scientists, teachers, and workers whose lives had been ended for no reason. The message was simple but terrifying. Humanity remembered, and humanity was coming. As the first day after the attack ended, something extraordinary became clear. The Zephyrians had attacked what they thought was a weak, peaceful species. Instead, they had awakened the most dangerous military force the galaxy had ever seen. The age of human diplomacy was over. The age of human fury had begun. 3 months after the attack on Earth, the first human revenge strike was ready. Admiral Nina Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the battleship Earth's Vengeance as her fleet approached the Zephyrian mining colony at Kepler 442b. Behind her followed 200 warships, each one built with a single purpose: to show the Zephyrians that their attack on Earth had consequences. Nina was a small woman with dark hair and fierce eyes. She had commanded merchant ships before the war, carrying trade goods between human colonies. Now she commanded the largest battle fleet humanity had ever assembled. The transformation still amazed her. "Target in sight," reported her navigation officer, Lieutenant Tony Kim. "The Zephyrian mining complex is exactly where our intelligence said it would be." Nina studied the enemy installation through her ship's sensors. The Zephyrians had built a typical mining operation: crystal towers that extracted precious metals from the planet's core, orbital platforms that processed the raw materials, and defensive stations that protected the whole complex. "Any civilian settlements?" Nina asked. "Negative," replied Major Paul Anderson, who served as her military advisor. "This is a purely military and industrial target. No families, no children, no non-combatants." Nina nodded. This was important. Humanity had chosen to fight this war differently than the Zephyrians. Humans would not target innocent people. They would destroy military forces and industrial capacity, but they would not become murderers. "All ships begin the attack," Nina ordered. The human fleet opened fire with weapons the galaxy had never seen before: plasma cannons that could melt through crystal armor, missile systems that fired thousands of projectiles in perfect coordination, energy beams that could cut a ship in half from 1,000 kilometers away. The Zephyrian defenders responded quickly, but they were completely outmatched. Their crystal ships were beautiful and elegant, but they had been designed for fighting other crystal ships. Human weapons use different principles, different energies, different approaches to warfare. Within 2 hours, every Zephyrian military installation at Kepler 442b was destroyed. The mining operation lay in ruins. Dozens of enemy ships floated, dead in space. The message was clear. Humanity could reach any Zephyrian target anywhere in the galaxy, but the attack on Kepler 442b was just the beginning. While Admiral Rodriguez was destroying the mining colony, similar attacks were happening at 6 other Zephyrian outposts. Human fleets appeared out of nowhere, struck with devastating force, and disappeared before reinforcements could arrive. Back on Earth, the scope of human military production was becoming clear. Director Sam Johnson stood in what had once been the largest mining operation in human space. Now it was the largest weapons factory in the galaxy. "Production report," Sam called to his shift supervisor, Engineer Katie Walsh. Katie consulted her datapad, still amazed by the numbers. "We completed 50,000 missile launchers yesterday, 800 new fighter ships, 12 capital ship weapon systems, and that's just from this facility." Sam nodded. Across human space, similar factories were working around the clock. The industrial capacity that had built cities on 100 worlds was now focused on building instruments of war. The Zephyrians had no idea what they were facing. The transformation wasn't just industrial, it was cultural. Captain Jason Miller had been a cargo pilot before the war. Now he commanded one of the new Vengeance-class dreadnoughts, ships built specifically to fight Zephyrians. Jason's ship was not elegant like the old human designs. It was ugly, functional, and deadly. Every surface bristled with weapons. Every system was designed for maximum firepower and survivability. The ship looked like what it was, a tool for destroying enemies. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we're receiving transmission from Zephyrian space." Jason smiled grimly. "Put it through." The message was from a Zephyrian military commander. The alien's blue-gray face appeared on the screen, and Jason could see fear in his large black eyes. "Human fleet, this is Commander Zethka of the Zephyrian Border Patrol. We demand that you withdraw from our territory immediately." Jason laughed. "You demand? You attacked our homeworld and murdered 7 million innocent people. Now you're making demands?" "That was a mistake," the Zephyrian commander said quickly. "Our leadership acted without proper authorization. We are prepared to offer compensation for the damage." "Compensation?" Jason's voice turned ice cold. "You think you can pay us money for the lives of our children?" The Zephyrian looked confused. "We do not understand. This is how conflicts are normally resolved. Payment and territorial adjustments." Jason realized something important. The Zephyrians truly did not understand what they had done. They saw the attack on Earth as a normal military action, like capturing a trading post or mining facility. They had no concept of the emotional impact of mass murder. "Let me explain something to you," Jason said slowly. "Humans don't fight for territory or resources. We fight for each other. You killed our families. There is no compensation for that. There is no payment that will bring them back. There is only justice." The Zephyrian commander's confusion turned to fear. "What do you want?" "We want you to understand that actions have consequences. You chose to be murderers. Now you will face what murderers deserve." Jason cut the communication and turned to his weapons officer. "Target their patrol ships, show them what human justice looks like." Meanwhile, intelligence reports were flooding into human command centers from across the galaxy. The other alien species were watching the war with growing alarm. Intercepted communications showed that humanity's response had shocked everyone. Dr. Rachel Green analyzed these messages in her intelligence center on Luna. The aliens had expected a diplomatic protest, maybe some economic sanctions. They had not expected the complete military mobilization of human civilization. "Listen to this," Rachel said to her assistant, playing a recorded alien communication. "This is from the Centaurian High Council." The alien voice sounded worried. "The humans are not behaving as predicted. Their response exceeds all normal parameters for territorial conflicts. They appear to be treating this as an existential threat, rather than a political dispute." Rachel smiled. The aliens still didn't understand. They thought this was about politics, or territory. They couldn't comprehend that humans viewed the attack as an attempt to exterminate their species. Captain Laura Davis commanded a squadron of the new Ghost Fleet ships. These were unmanned vessels controlled by human pilots from safe distances. Each ship fought with human cunning but risked no human lives. Laura sat in her control center on the battle station, New Geneva's Revenge, named after the first city destroyed in the attack. Around her, Dozens of other pilots controlled their robot ships in battles across Zephyrian space. Ghost Squadron 7 reporting, came a voice over the radio. We've eliminated the Zephyrian patrol base at Epsilon Eridani. No human casualties. Ghost Squadron 12 here. The mining platform at Wolf 359 is destroyed. Enemy ships are fleeing the system. Laura watched her tactical display as human forces systematically dismantled Zephyrian military infrastructure across dozens of star systems. The enemy was being pushed back on all fronts, and they seemed powerless to stop it. But the most important change was happening in the minds of the Zephyrians themselves. Intercepted communications showed growing panic among their leadership. Admiral Jake Morrison, now in command of the overall war effort, listened to these intercepts with grim satisfaction. The Zephyrians were finally beginning to understand what they had unleashed. Their high command is in full retreat, reported his intelligence officer, Commander Sarah Johnson. They're pulling back from their outer territories and concentrating around their core worlds. Good, Jake replied. Let them run. Let them understand that there is nowhere they can hide from human justice. The communications intercepts revealed the depth of Zephyrian confusion. They had studied humanity for years before the attack. They knew about human technology, human settlements, and human military capabilities, but they had completely misunderstood human nature. They thought we were weak because we chose peace, Jake said to his staff. They saw our diplomacy as cowardice. They mistook our kindness for inability to fight. It's a mistake that many species have made throughout history, replied Dr. Lisa Harper, who now served as the chief technology advisor. They confused choice with capability. As the third month of the war ended, the strategic situation was clear. Humanity had seized the initiative and would never give it back. Zephyrian forces were in full retreat. Their industrial capacity was being systematically destroyed. Their military was demoralized and scattered, but the humans were just getting started. The real war was about to begin. The siege of Zephyr Prime began on a Tuesday morning. General Mike Thompson stood in the command center of the massive human battle station, Earth Remembers, as the largest military fleet in galactic history took position around the Zephyrian homeworld. Mike was a tall, quiet man who had spent most of his career planning logistics for peaceful colonies. Now he commanded over 300,000 warships in the most important battle of the war. The transformation still felt strange to him, but he had accepted his new role completely. Fleet status report, Mike requested. Captain Jason Miller, now his fleet coordinator, read from his display. All assault groups in position, orbital bombardment platforms ready, ground forces standing by. We have complete space superiority around the planet. Mike looked at the tactical display showing Zephyr Prime. It was a beautiful world covered in crystal cities that sparkled like jewels. Billions of Zephyrians lived on the planet below. Most of them were innocent civilians who had nothing to do with the attack on Earth. What about evacuation routes, Mike asked. The civilian transport lanes remain open, replied Commander Sarah Johnson. We're only targeting military installations and government facilities. Refugee ships are being allowed to leave the system freely. This was important to Mike and to all human commanders. The war was about justice, not genocide. Humans would destroy the Zephyrian military and government, but they would not become mass murderers like their enemies. The bombardment began with surgical precision. Human weapons targeted specific buildings in the crystal cities below. Military headquarters vanished in flashes of light. Weapons factories were reduced to glowing craters. Government buildings simply ceased to exist. But civilian areas remained untouched. Hospitals, schools, and residential districts were carefully avoided. Human targeting systems were so accurate that they could destroy one building while leaving the one next to it completely undamaged. The Zephyrian military tried to respond, but their situation was hopeless. Every time they moved ships into defensive positions, human forces destroyed them. Every time they tried to launch fighters, human interceptors shot them down. The battle was over before it really began. Admiral Chris Parker commanded the siege from his flagship, Geneva's Fury. Chris had been a peaceful explorer before the war, mapping new star systems for human expansion. Now he coordinated the systematic destruction of enemy military power. "Sir," called his communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission from the Zephyrian High Command. They want to surrender." Chris considered this for a moment. "Put them through." The image of a Zephyrian leader appeared on the screen. The alien looked desperate and afraid. His crystal blue skin was pale, and his large black eyes showed panic. "Human Commander, this is Prime Minister Kethvar of the Zephyrian Empire. We formally surrender all military forces and request immediate ceasefire." Chris looked at the alien leader with cold eyes. "Surrender? After you murdered 7 million innocent humans?" "It was a mistake," the Prime Minister said quickly. "A terrible error in judgment. We are prepared to make full reparations for the damage caused." "Reparations?" Chris laughed bitterly. "You think you can bring back the dead with money? You think you can undo the tears of orphaned children with trade agreements?" The Zephyrian looked confused. "We do not understand. This is how wars normally end. The defeated party pays compensation and the conflict concludes." Chris realized that the aliens still didn't grasp what they had done. They thought of the attack on Earth as a normal military action, like capturing a resource station or destroying a rival trading post. They couldn't understand the emotional devastation they had caused. "Let me explain something to you," Chris said slowly. "You didn't attack our military. You didn't target our weapons or our ships. You targeted our families. You murdered children while they played. You killed parents while they celebrated peace. There is no compensation for that." "Then what do you want?" the Prime Minister asked desperately. "We want you to understand that actions have consequences. You chose to be murderers. Now you will face the justice that murderers deserve." The transmission ended, and Chris turned back to his tactical display. The siege would continue until the Zephyrian government was completely destroyed and their military capacity eliminated forever. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, human forces were pursuing fleeing Zephyrian ships with relentless determination. Captain Dan Roberts commanded a hunter-killer squadron that tracked down war criminals trying to escape justice. Dan had been a rescue pilot before the war, saving stranded travelers and broken ships. Now he hunted enemy commanders with the same dedication he had once used to save lives. "Target acquired," reported his sensor operator. "Zephyrian heavy cruiser attempting to reach the neutral zone." "Not today," Dan said grimly. "All ships attack pattern Delta. Don't let them escape." The human ships moved with deadly coordination. Within minutes, the Zephyrian cruiser was disabled and boarded. The enemy crew was captured and would face trial for their crimes against humanity. This scene was repeating throughout the galaxy. Wherever Zephyrian military forces tried to run, human fleets were waiting. The enemy had nowhere to hide and no way to escape the consequences of their actions. On Earth, Major Lisa Brown commanded the rapid response teams that prevented Zephyrian forces from regrouping. Lisa had been a teacher before the war, helping children learn about the wonders of space. Now she used that same patience and attention to detail to hunt down enemy survivors. Intelligence reports 3 Zephyrian ships trying to establish a hidden base in the asteroid belt, her aide reported. "Dispatch, Squadron 7, Lisa ordered. "Make sure they understand that there are no safe havens for murderers." The transformation of human society was now complete. Every person, every ship, every facility was focused on the war effort. But it wasn't hatred that drove them. It was justice. The Galactic Council made one final attempt to stop the war. Delegation of alien ambassadors approached the human fleet around Zephyr Prime. Admiral Jake Morrison met with them personally. "Admiral Morrison," said the Centaurian ambassador, "surely enough blood has been spilled. The Zephyrians are defeated. Their military is destroyed. Isn't it time to show mercy?" Jake looked at the alien representative with tired eyes. "Where was your mercy when our children were being murdered? Where was your intervention when 7 million innocent humans died?" "We could not have prevented that attack," the ambassador protested. "But you could prevent this one?" Jake asked. "You had 300 years to learn about humanity. You knew we were peaceful. You knew we preferred diplomacy to violence. But when we needed your help, when our people were being slaughtered, where were you?" The alien delegation had no answer. They had watched the attack on Earth with concern, but had not acted to stop it. Now they wanted to prevent human retaliation. "The time for diplomacy is over," Jake continued. "You will witness the complete destruction of Zephyrian military power. You will see what happens to species that choose to murder human families. And you will remember this lesson." The siege of Zephyr Prime lasted for 6 days. When it ended, the Zephyrian Empire no longer existed as a military force. Their government had fled or surrendered. Their ships were destroyed or captured. Their weapons factories were smoking ruins. But the humans weren't finished. Colonel Jack Turner led the assault on the final Zephyrian stronghold, a massive fortress, hidden in a distant asteroid field. Jack had been a construction engineer before the war, building homes for human families. Now he used those same skills to tear down enemy fortifications. "This is for New Geneva," Jack said as his troops stormed the fortress. "This is for Perth. This is for Lagos. This is for all the children who will never come home." The fortress fell within hours. With its destruction, organized Zephyrian resistance came to an end. The war was effectively over. Captain Ryan Torres, the same pilot who had tried to stop the original missile attack, now flew patrol missions around the ruins of Zephyr Prime. Ryan looked down at the planet below and felt a mixture of satisfaction and sadness. Justice had been served. The murderers had been punished, but 7 million humans were still dead and no amount of victory could bring them back. "All ships," came Admiral Morrison's voice over the radio. "Prepare for final phase operations. It's time to make sure this never happens again." The galaxy was about to learn that humanity's capacity for justice was matched only by their determination to protect the innocent. The age of human mercy was beginning, but it would be a mercy backed by the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. 6 months after the attack on Earth, President Amanda Foster stood before the Galactic Council in their Grand Assembly Hall. The war was over. The Zephyrian Empire had been completely destroyed as a military power. Their scattered survivors lived as refugees across neutral worlds, forever marked as the species that had learned what happened when humans were pushed too far. Amanda looked different now. The gentle diplomat who had believed in peace above all else was gone. In her place stood a leader who had learned that sometimes violence was the only language that certain species understood. "Honored delegates," Amanda began, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "For 300 years, humanity offered friendship to the galaxy. We shared our knowledge, our resources, and our dreams of peaceful cooperation. We believed that all conflicts could be resolved through talking and understanding." The alien representatives listened in uncomfortable silence. Many of them remembered the old Amanda Foster, the woman who had spent decades building bridges between different species. This new version made them nervous. "We were wrong," Amanda continued. "Some species see kindness as weakness. They mistake diplomacy for cowardice. They believe that peaceful peoples are easy targets for murder and conquest." A murmur ran through the assembly. Everyone knew she was talking about more than just the Zephyrians. Many species had underestimated humanity over the years, seeing them as soft and naive. The Zephyrian Empire chose to test that theory. They launched 10 antimatter missiles at Earth during our Festival of Unity. They murdered 7.2 million innocent humans, including children who were playing and families who were celebrating peace. Amanda paused, letting the weight of those numbers sink in. Behind her, a massive display showed the names and faces of every person who had died in the attack. The list scrolled continuously, taking over an hour to complete. You have all seen what happened next. You witnessed the complete military mobilization of human civilization. You watched as our industrial capacity, built for peaceful purposes, transformed into the most efficient war machine in galactic history. The display changed, showing images from the war, human fleets appearing from nowhere to destroy Zephyrian outposts, the siege of Zephyr Prime, the systematic elimination of enemy military forces across dozens of star systems. Admiral Jake Morrison sat in the human delegation, watching the reactions of the alien representatives. Many of them looked afraid. They were beginning to understand that they had been living next to a sleeping giant for centuries. The war lasted 6 months, Amanda continued. In that time, humanity built over 400,000 warships. We converted our entire civilization into a military force numbering 50 million soldiers. We pursued fleeing enemies across the galaxy and eliminated every trace of organized Zephyrian military power. General Marcus Webb stood and approached the podium. Marcus had commanded the overall war effort, coordinating the largest military campaign in galactic history. Now he would deliver the most important message of his career. The final statistics, Marcus announced, tell a simple story. Zephyrian military casualties, approximately 2 million. Zephyrian civilian casualties, 0. Human military casualties, fewer than 100,000. Human civilian casualties, 7.2 million, all killed in the unprovoked attack. The numbers spoke for themselves. Humanity had fought the most efficient and merciful war in galactic history. They had destroyed their enemies while protecting innocent lives, even the lives of the children of those who had murdered their own children. Dr. Lisa Harper stepped forward to present the technical analysis that every species needed to hear. Lisa had spent the war developing new weapons and defensive systems. Now she had a different job, making sure everyone understood the implications of what they had witnessed. During the conflict, human industrial output exceeded our own projections by over 500%, Lisa explained. Our production capabilities, our technological advancement, and our military coordination surprised even us. We discovered that 3 centuries of peaceful development had created capabilities we never knew we possessed. The alien delegates shifted uncomfortably. They were beginning to realize that humanity had been holding back for centuries, choosing peace when they could have chosen conquest. Captain Ryan Torres, now promoted to admiral, addressed the assembly about the new galactic reality. Ryan had been there at the beginning, trying to stop those first missiles. He had earned the right to speak about the lessons learned. Some of you are wondering what happens next, Ryan said. Some of you are afraid that humanity will become conquerors now that we've revealed our military capabilities. Let me put those fears to rest. Ryan gestured to the display, which now showed images of human rescue ships helping Zephyrian refugees, human medical teams treating wounded enemies, human engineers rebuilding civilian infrastructure on former Zephyrian worlds. We are not conquerors. We never were. We fought this war for one reason: justice for murdered innocents. Now that justice has been served, we return to our preferred way of life: peace, cooperation, and mutual respect. But Ryan's expression hardened as he continued. However, let no one mistake our return to peace for a return to weakness. We have learned that some species only understand force. We have built the military capacity to deal with such species, and we will maintain that capacity forever. Director Sam Johnson stood to address the economic implications. Sam had overseen the conversion of human industrial facilities from peaceful production to military manufacturing. His transformation had been as complete as anyone's. Human trade relationships will continue as before, Sam announced. We welcome commerce with all peaceful species. We offer our technology and resources to those who share our values of cooperation and mutual respect. Sam's voice became cold as he delivered the warning that everyone was waiting for. But any species that threatens human civilians will face the same fate as the Zephyrians. We have proven that we can reach any target, anywhere in the galaxy. We have proven that we can mobilize overwhelming force faster than any enemy can respond. Engineer Katie Walsh presented the new defensive arrangements that would protect human space. Katie had designed many of the weapon systems that had won the war. Now she was designing the systems that would prevent future wars. All human settlements now maintain rapid response fleets, Katie explained. Any attack on human civilians will trigger immediate retaliation. We have established early warning networks throughout the galaxy. We have forward operating bases in strategic locations. The message was clear: humanity would never again be caught off guard by a surprise attack. Ambassador Victoria Cross delivered the final diplomatic statement. Victoria had withdrawn humanity from the Galactic Council at the beginning of the war. Now she was announcing the terms under which humans would rejoin galactic civilization. Humanity hereby rejoins the Galactic Council, Victoria announced. We offer renewed friendship to all peaceful species. We pledge to honor existing treaties and to work toward mutual prosperity." Victoria paused, making sure every delegate was listening carefully. "But we also serve notice that the age of human patience is over. We will no longer tolerate aggression against innocent people, whether human or alien. We will no longer stand aside while murderers plan genocide. Any species that chooses violence against civilians will face human justice. Any government that supports such actions will be held accountable. Any military force that threatens innocent lives will be destroyed." The assembly hall fell completely silent. Every alien representative understood that they had just heard a fundamental change in galactic politics. Humanity was no longer the gentle, diplomatic species that could be safely ignored or threatened. President Amanda Foster returned to the podium for her closing statement. She looked out at the assembled delegates and felt a mixture of sadness and determination. "We did not want this war," Amanda said quietly. "We did not want to become the galaxy's police force. We wanted to explore the stars, build new homes, and make friends with different species. The Zephyrians took that choice away from us. But we have learned something important about ourselves. When our families are threatened, when our children are murdered, when innocent people need protection, humanity will respond with unstoppable force. We will not fail the innocent again." Amanda looked directly into the cameras that were broadcasting her words across the galaxy. "To the peaceful species watching this broadcast, you have nothing to fear from humanity. We offer friendship, trade, and mutual cooperation, just as we always have. To any species considering violence against innocent people, remember the Zephyrians. Remember that actions have consequences. Remember that humanity is watching." The memorial ceremony took place on Earth 3 days later. 7 million individual monuments were erected at the sites where the missiles had struck. Each monument bore the name, image, and story of one person who had died in the attack. Admiral Jake Morrison spoke at the dedication ceremony in what had once been New Geneva. "They thought we were weak because we chose peace. They thought we were easy targets because we preferred diplomacy to violence. They learned that peaceful people are not weak people. They are simply people who choose peace until peace is no